Well, I would say one of the big ones was the first one that we talked about, which is challenging conventions. It's really easy to be blind to the conventions that there are in a category, and I think, and also really hard to initially see what the solution might be if you were to break that convention. And that was one of the big things that I've taken from working on This Girl Can, was that it felt like it was asking the impossible to not have pictures of women with six-packs. But women were telling us they didn't want to see pictures of women with six-packs, so we had to find a way of doing something different, and it felt inconceivable to show women as they are, and that in some way would be aspirational. But we did it, and it really worked. And I think the reason it worked was because it's a different kind of aspiration. It's not a physical aspiration, and I think that's where the old conventions were, that women are aspiring to a certain physical form. And what we were doing was giving them women who were full of confidence, and that's a different kind of aspiration.
Yeah, I mean, definitely what Vicky's just talked about in terms of challenging the conventions, but I think at the heart of that is using the insight. And definitely as a planner, I've learned that you can use insight for much more than the creative brief, so it doesn't have to stop there. And also, actually our role in how we connect with creatives and how we work with them, and also different parts of the team. So I think you can allow insight into various areas without overstepping the mark, and I think that's really, really key to challenging those conventions, because we looked at the brief in a slightly different way strategically, but then we were also able to use the insight to then look at the creative work in a different way. So it was really great to kind of work with Simon Ray on the casting, for instance, where we were watching casting tapes, and I could use the insights that we had from the qualitative research and say, actually, that woman's just touched on something that's really interesting there. She's talking about this barrier that came up in our call groups, and so we could help them to kind of write the lines and craft the lines based on those women, and know that it would resonate with a huge audience because we'd spoken to those women and we could really understand them. So I think, insight being at the heart of everything, and letting it go much broader than just the creative brief, for me is a big learning, and understanding where your line is with the creatives and how you can work with them to really get them to a different place.
And I think there's an element of great fortune as well in the clients that we have, who are equally as ambitious as we are and have pushed us to get to a much better place. And there's an element of finding the right clients, but also being blessed with clients that are wanting to do something different and are wanting to change. It is a challenge, and I think you need to know what you're doing from the start and be absolutely clear on what your strategy is and what you're trying to achieve. But then we've got a full-time social media community manager who is watching what's happening at all times, so we're actually able to respond really quickly. And I think it is just being fleet of foot and having the time set aside to look for the clues and the cues that people are saying, and then react to them. So things like, and you can do some things very quickly and you can do some things not quite so quickly, but things like the app that we developed where people could put their own photos behind it, that came from looking at how people were using the campaign, and then were saying, well, actually we can help them, make it easier for them to put their own posts out there. And the M&S partnership again came from listening to what people were saying and reacting to that, and Sport England then went and created the partnership with Marks and Spencer's. So I think it is about having the time to be fleet of foot, as in consciously putting time aside to do it.
Yeah, and also having the team set up as well. So Alex knowing, our community manager knowing that actually we very much welcome the insight from the community, and also us not disregarding what she knows. She has got an incredible wealth of knowledge on the audience, and it would be really silly of us to not want to listen to her and keep up to date with what she's learning. So I think we've definitely got a team dynamic where everyone's sharing stuff all the time, constantly, and we're trying things out as well. The genius thing about social is that you can try something, and if it doesn't work, you can adapt it and keep moving. So I think, as Vicky says, we definitely set out at the beginning with quite a strong idea of where we were going to go, and specifically with the phase 2 that we've spoken about, inspiration, we planned out the kind of first sets. We did 2 kind of bursts of above the line work, but actually in between that we were looking at what the audience were doing and how they were reacting, because we had no idea how this would land. Initially it's kind of something that we hadn't seen before. Thankfully it went very well, but that meant that we were able to adapt along the way and create things like the M&S partnership and the app. So I think it's the kind of one of the more fun things about being a planner in this day and age is being able to do the long-term stuff, but also kind of thinking quick on your feet and reacting and doing some shorter-term things as well.